Hey Tribe, Andrew and Nadine back here. We're going to give you 3 exercises to help relieve some of that tension in your lower back that you can do post-workout, pre-workout, as well as a good stretch of the quads and into the psoas, so we can find calmness in our stretching, find some fun, and increase our range of motion. Very first one we're going to start off on is what we call the twisted flamingo. We're going to get into a quadruped position, so that means that we're going to be on the hands and knees in a very much of a tabletop position. So Nadine's shoulders are directly up over her hands, her hips are going to be directly over the knee, and relatively just that natural curvature of the spine, nothing fantastic about arching or flexing or anything like that. So just feel good. You can kind of shift your body forward a little bit, shift your body back, find that good balance, as well as making sure that those knees are stable. So if they're too close, you could bring them a little bit wider if you like. And we do have those toes tucked. So in that back foot, we're having those toes tucked underneath the knee the best we can. So the very first thing that we're going to do is she's going to take her left leg and she's going to pick it up and put it behind her right leg. Then what we're going to try and do is we're going to lock out that arm. So the side that she brought it over to the right. So she's going to lock this arm out and she's going to imagine that she's rotating and driving this hip down to the ground. As you can see, she's kind of twisting, almost like slithering like a snake in that rotation to help feel the stretch. It's all coming in through around here, kind of all the way up here. She could also come and straighten that back out. So we're going to work her way back up. And this time when she rotates, she's going to think about bringing the side of her hip to, we're going to come back to this side. Actually, we're going to bring the side of the hip all the way down to the ground, and we could even bring this hip to the ground and raise this arm up. So we're going to drop that hip the best that we can to the ground and then come on up. We're going to switch that up. We're going to go switch the hand and then drop the other hip and trying to get that hip stretched the best that we can. You can keep both hands on the ground or you can lift one up, but we're trying to really focus on stretching this part of the back. Come back up into that neutral position. So she's going to stay here for a second, and what we're trying to see, she's going to show you how she kind of just manipulates the upper part of the back and then going the other way. So this is exactly what the body is kind of doing as she goes through that movement, as she's driving the hip down. Now, the side that she crosses that leg over, so that left leg is coming to the right side, she's capable of dropping this right hip more towards the ground and closer to the ground, okay? When she goes into the opposite direction, like you saw earlier, she's not going to get as much range because that leg is tied over, so we might get a little bit more into that thoracic and lumbar. We can kind of hang out there, and then we're going to switch those legs up, and we're going to do that same thing. Doesn't really matter which side you start, just focus on keeping the load over the shoulder is still over the hand, as well as this elbow is locked out. We want a very firm, locked out position in that, so we're retracting that scapula as well. And we're just kind of shifting back and forth. What I would say is when you start this off, thank you Nadine, you can come back to that neutral position. When you guys start this off, I would say go into that and feeling that stretch, not trying to win the stretch. We want to just feel that stretch, almost that we're telling our body we want more. You know, it's like when you bite into a good burger or whatever it is that you're eating, and you want to eat that a little bit faster. It's the same thing with movement, that when we're going into that stretch initially, we want to kind of just pull ourselves back a little bit, enjoy that movement, enjoy that feeling, feel the stretch, see what's going on, make sure we're hitting the right muscles, and that's what we want you to target on. If we go right into it real quick, we go fast, we're just kind of pulling on those muscles, not allowing to stretch, and a lot of times we'll go to holding our breath or making wincy faces. We do not want either one of those at any time that we're doing kind of cool down stretches and activation into these poses. So keep that in mind while you're doing this. Breathe throughout the entire movement. And I would just set a clock. Do one side for about 2 minutes, then do another side for 2 minutes. At a minimum, I would say when you're doing focus activation stretching like we're doing, you want at least 2 minutes of that, preferably up to 4. It just allows a lot of that body to really accept that position, calm down, and find support in it so your body can release some of those tension spots in our body. All right, second one that we're going to do is going to be that, let's see, actually we're gonna switch that up. We're gonna show you one more angle about that. Sorry about that, guys. We're gonna show you one more angle. That's why we have these set up like this in this T position. So to see it from the side angle of that twisted flamingo, the shoulder is over that hand, this hip is over that knee, and now she's just gonna cross one leg over And you can kind of see how that body is turned and manipulated and moved while she goes into this. Your position might look entirely different, and not, I wouldn't say entirely, but slightly different would be totally fine. And just working that body from side to side, getting that good rotation into that movement, feeling the stretch all right in here. Can go down a little bit into that glute as well too. You can try lifting up the hand or keeping that hand on the ground. Either way, just trying to explore a lot of that movement, always going back to that neutral position before we do that. Slow, controlled movements, guys. All right, now we're gonna go on to those quadratic or quadruped thoracic rotation. That's it, it's one of these. So we're going to go back into that quadruped position again. This time we're working on more of the upper thoracic as well as into a lot of the entire shoulder girdle. And what we're going to do is just bring that arm slightly behind the ear. I'm a big fan of just having the fingertips touch. And I always think this elbow is an extension of your ear. So wherever the ear is, that's where the elbow is. So we don't want this elbow up really high. We don't want this elbow really low. We want it kind of working right there. Once again, we're still loading all on one shoulder and keeping that tabletop position the best that we can. We don't want that hand too far in front of us. So if Nadine's right hand is far in front, you bring that right hand pretty far in front. See how we're loaded like this? Most of our load is taking back here. So we either want to just shift that body up, or we can bring that hand back till we find a good solid position. Just take a look at those hips always. It's important to do that. Once we're in this position, we're going to start off super slow. You're talking about inchworm pace that we're going to go through this process. And she's going to rotate underneath the body. So that head and arm is moving as one. She should be feeling a lot of the pull here. There might be a dip down, might be a dip up. That's fine. And then we're going to slowly unroll this. So we're working from the spine. We're rotating up as well as pulling that shoulder back while we rotate up. Breathe through this, come back to that neutral position. I'm gonna have you switch that up, Nadine. Let's go on the other side so they can see when you lift. Oh no, you stay right there. We're just gonna use that other arm. So we're gonna drop down so you can see what it looks like kind of from the other side. Trying to feel all that stretch into that upper thoracic and even pulling a little bit onto that shoulder blade. And then we're going to come back up nice and slow, doing the best that we can. I'm just creating that rotation, pulling the shoulder blade back, feeling the stretch all into that spine, and then coming back to that neutral place. What we don't want is a fast movement. So Nadine, if you want to demo a fast kind of movement, we don't want this. And then we also don't want just a chicken wing on that arm. So the arm moves and the head doesn't move. Pay attention to both those things while you're doing this. That's why we go super, super slow. Tempo, time under tension training is going to teach you how to correct that movement. It's not about lifting more weight. It's not about that stuff. It's about that focused, purposeful movement, what we want to do. Cool. That's the quadruped thoracic rotation. Finally, the last one we're going to show you a couple variations for, and this is going to attack a little bit more of those tight quads that you have. You do so much squatting in group classes, and CrossFit, high intensity workouts, those things. There's tons of squatting, and you're sitting all day or driving in a car, so they get very short. This is a great exercise to help lengthen these quads. It's going to stretch the psoas a little bit out, and that's going to help relieve that tightness that you have on that hamstring. Remember, when we are sitting or squatting and our quads are really strong, we have this anterior pelvic tilt. So if my hips are level, the length of my quad is going to be relative to the length of my hamstring. If I have an anterior pelvic tilt, this is shorter, the quads are shorter, hamstrings are going to be longer, and when they're longer, it's like pulling a rubber band. You're going to feel the tension here. So we have the tendency to go and roll out these hamstrings. We have a tendency that, oh, our hamstrings are trying to work on these. When in reality, what we need to do is the hips are so tight up front in the quad that it's pulling the hips down. So if we can stretch out the quads, get the hip to get into a level position, now we're relieving that tension off of that hamstring. So we want to stretch the quads out and we want to strengthen the hamstrings, okay? So one way that we can lengthen the quads, and this is my absolute favorite method of doing that, is what do you want to call it? Yeah, that's it. We're going to call it this movement. You're just going to see it. We don't have a name for it. And I'm sure there's a name out there, but we We just do the movements. Movements are more important than names. So what we're going to do is have Nadine kind of scoot forward. And initially all she's going to do is kind of keep the feet together, and she's going to have the knees slightly apart like they are. She's just going to reach her hands back with straight arms and support herself with her hands behind her back on the ground. And here's a good way to start. And from here, we can squeeze our glute and push the hips forward the best that we can. And we feel that. So we feel that stretch as we running through those quads. It's going to be really tight, and that's okay. We want to make sure that we can breathe into this position. If we feel good in this position, we want to go a little bit lower. What we can do is we can lean on a medicine ball. I think these are called like dragon something. I think Ramwad called them like dragon poses or something like that. There's something like that in Ramwad. They did that years and years ago. But yeah, we can lean back onto this med ball, and then we can kind of just hang out there once again, focus on that breath control of what we're doing, feeling the stretch of those quads the best that we can, and then we can come up out of there, Nadine. Once we get good at that med ball, we can start working our way back further. So we like to use some yoga blocks. Use them up on the side if you want for a little bit more height. I probably wouldn't suggest going here. That should be just a little more unstable and higher up, and you should be good with your arms. So you can either start off with the blocks on the ground like this, or start off with the blocks on the ground like this. So with Nadine, we're just going to go into those 4-inch blocks. And what she can do is just drop those elbows down is the first thing. And then she's going to find that good distance of where she feels that stretch, where she can still breathe, where she is not making a wincing face in pain, and somewhere that you can hang out with as a minimum of 2 minutes. That's what you want to shoot for. If you're getting in the position and you're hanging out there for 10 seconds and you're fighting to get out of there, that means we're pushing it too hard on that stretch. We're pretty much recruiting more fight or flight rather than rest and digest, okay? So once she does this, she feels good. You can still drive those hips forward if you needed to. And then what we can do is just slowly drop those hips back down to the glutes. And if they are sitting there, which is awesome, what we want, we could start working those blocks backwards. So we can kind of just inch them back. And then we're going to kind of do that same thing. I'm a big fan of what Nadine just did, is tilt that head back, stretch out all those flexors, neck flexors. And then let's do the test, Nadine. Let's see if we can get all the way down there. We're going to kick those out, and then the goal is we try to get to those elbows, and then we're going to try and drop that back down, breathe, good, and then hang out of there. I'm going to have Nadine come up out of there. Yeah, so when you get into that position, I'm sure Nadine felt it. She could do it, but hanging out there for 2 minutes is going to be tough. She could do it, but yeah, it will be tough doing that, so we want to stay out of there. Take it with time, guys. Make those adjustments, slow changes. We'll get the adaptation of the muscles that we want. But try these out. They should relieve some tension into that lower back and also kind of stretch out those quads that are really tight, free up a little bit of those hamstrings. Try these out. If you like our video, feel free to subscribe. We come out with new videos every single week. Thanks a lot. Make sure you add in the comments if you tried these, how they feel, as well as if there's certain things that you want us to go over. We'll gladly create some videos on there. Thanks a lot, tribe. We'll see you next week.